Hello guys, today we're going to have a new video on Fallout 4 using the Steam Deck. We're going to be starting it off with the low preset, and we're playing the game at 800p as well to start it off. And as always, if you like what you see, it's up the channel, we highly appreciate it as well. Let's get into it.
We can keep traveling as much as you want. I don't require sleep or food in order to survive.
Alright, I fast traveled to Park Street Station since the spawn area or your actual base runs super smooth. We could hold 60 very easily without any stuttering. And I remember from my first playthrough of this game that the actual major cities cause us a lot of stuttering and a lot of lag spikes, and this seems to be the case as well with the Steam Deck. Even at low settings, we're still getting some dips into the 50s, even the 40s sometimes, but we haven't fallen below 40 yet, which is a good thing. So capping the FPS to 40 probably will fix this issue for the most part. But again, the stuttering isn't too major, so if you don't really care too much about it, it happens here and there in some of the more intensive scenes, then you can still play the game at 60 FPS. You will get some stutters in those heavier scenes. The game itself looks fantastic at low settings, can't really complain about it. But the one thing that sucks about it is the render distance. You will see a lot of things just pop in and pop out. But other than that, the game looks sharp. I like how it looks. But yeah, other than the actual pop in, it's really good. It's a really good preset. Alright, now we're running the game at the same settings as before, low settings, same resolution, but we capped the FPS to 40 instead of letting it be uncapped. I guess the cap is 60 in this game. And as you can see, we're still getting some stutters, but it's not as intensive as what it was before. We had some dips into the 30s, but for the most part, we are able to hold a steady 40 in this city, which is an improvement compared to 60 FPS. And yeah, let's go and jump up to medium settings. Alright, now playing the game at medium settings and starting off with the spawn area or our home base, we're still able to hold 60 FPS quite easily. Not really surprised about this since this area is not as intensive as the other areas in this game. We do get a few dips here and there into the high 50s, but other than that, able to hold a steady 60. Let's go ahead and actually leave this area and go up to the free roam area, or I guess the open world, and see how it handles there. We're getting some dips into the low 50s right there. But other than that, this ran really smooth. Let's go to move up to the actual main city and see how it compares there. Now in the city, we can see it's quite stuttery now. Far worse than what it was at low settings. But this was actually far worse when I initially loaded it in. But as time goes on, it will feel a little bit better. We are still able to hold 60 in some areas, but as soon as you run into a more intensive situation, you will quickly dip down into the low 50s and even the 40s as well at times. Now capping your FPS to 40 will work the same way as low settings. It will make the game far more stable, it won't be as stuttery, and it won't be having as many FPS drops as what it was before at 60 FPS. Alright, let's go ahead and play at high settings. Alright, now playing the game at high settings, we can no longer hold a steady 60 in our base, and we're all over the place. We're sitting in the 40s to the low 50s. So at this point, a 40 FPS cap is basically mandatory. FPS is doing much better outside of the base. We're getting 50 to 60 FPS, and we're getting some dips into the 40s occasionally as well. Back in the city, and we can no longer hold 30 FPS. We're getting dips all over the place into the 20s, and our best case scenario is like the mid 30s. Frame graph is looking very choppy and pretty much all over the place, but maybe a 30 FPS cap could fix this, although we will get some dips into the 20s. This is all due to the game being heavily CPU bound. As you can see, the CPU is pulling 10 watts, while the GPU is only able to pull 3 watts. And as you go up the presets, as you increase the graphical quality, the GPU or the CPU won't be getting enough power, so the FPS will drop. Alright, now playing the game at ultra settings, it's around about the same as high settings in our camp, around 40 to 50 FPS, and in the city, it's getting around 30 FPS as well, so about the same as high settings. And I'm pretty sure on the PS4 or Xbox One, this ran at 30 FPS, cap 30 FPS, so it's about how it runs on the consoles. This area is very intensive from what I can remember, so I think in other areas it will be way less demanding and it will run way smoother as well. But ideally, I think you want to play at medium preset, or actually tune the settings to find a good balance of performance and quality, which I'll be doing at the end of the video as well. And then you can cap the FPS to either 40, 30, 60 to get better battery life or a better feel of the game. Alright, I went ahead and actually optimized the settings. I'll have them all on the screen as well. And starting off with the cap 30 FPS, we can see that we're getting a stable 30 for the most part in the city. Our power draws down to 16 watts instead of 24, 25. So a decent decrease. And this is basically how it runs on consoles, 30 FPS. So if you're cool with that, then this is perfect for you. And 40 FPS in the city seems very stable as well. Can't really complain about this. Game looks good. Our textures are set to high instead of like low. So it's a good mix of medium to high settings. And those intensive settings I've turned down to low. And for our view distance and all that, I have it down to the middle, just to find a good balance as well. But 60 FPS is unfortunately not doable with these settings. The most we can get is around 47, 49 FPS. In the city anyway, maybe outside the city, it's more doable to hit 60. But yeah, I think with these settings, you definitely want to cap the FPS to 40 or 30. Ideally, I would go with 30 since it's more stable. And I know it's not the best feeling for a first-person shooter game, but still, that's what I would go with. Alright, we're playing the game at the same settings as before, but instead of playing at 800p, we're playing at 960 by 600. So we're using FSR at this point. Goal of this setting is for the best battery life. I do have a power limit set as well, a TDP limit of 7 watts. And as you can see, we're pulling 8 watts right now. It is slowly climbing up, but I'm guessing it will probably stabilize at 9 to 10 watts, which will give us around 4 hours of battery life instead of the 2 hours or an hour and a half battery life that it would be if it was uncapped at 800p. Now surprisingly, we can actually hold 40 FPS as well with this setting and the same power limit of 7 watts, which is kind of cool. But this will obviously increase our power draw a little bit since we have to push a little bit more extra frames. But here's the problem that I've noticed with this game. If you drop the resolution down below 800p, I didn't try at 720p since that will give us extra black bars, which I don't like. But I did try every other resolution that was available to us, and with every single one, it would break the map. The actual cursor would get stuck on top of the map, which means you can't fast travel anymore, which kind of ruins the game. So this is a great preset. It's a great resolution as well. Looks great with FSR, but it won't let you use the map. It will just get stuck. I tried every single fix that I could find online about this issue. Tried every single resolution except for 720p. That didn't fix it. I turned off FSR. Didn't fix it. I set the right trackpad as a mouse. That wouldn't work since the game doesn't let you have a controller and a mouse active at the same time. Alright, so I'm forced to bring it back up to 800p. Same power limit and same settings. But we're in the main city this time instead of some random city. And we can see that we're getting some dips into the 20s, the high 20s. But still able to hold 30 for the most part, which is pretty great. Pretty sure 40 FPS at this point isn't going to be doable. I think this is still a great preset. We are pulling 14 watts now, so it's not as good as what it was before. But still, will give us a little bit more than 2.5 hours of battery life. So 40 FPS is kind of doable. We can't hold a consistent 40, which kind of sucks. So at this point, if you want to get 40 FPS, I would go ahead and increase the power limit or just remove it outright and play at 15 watts. But if you want the best battery life, then go ahead and cap the FPS to 30 with a 7 watt power limit, and that should be pretty good. Alright, that's it for the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you found it useful. If you did, give it a like. So to show me how to reach it as well. Alright, see you next time.